What is going on, everyone? Believe it or not, we are rolling through the semester and we have accomplished 3 of our 4 tasks. Way back when, we learned what data is and why data journalism is important. Then we moved on to Excel, learning the functions in Excel. Then we just wrapped up SQL, and now we're on to Tableau. And Tableau Public, it's an free online map building and chart building program that lets you create interactive visuals for your stories. And not only does it let you create interactive visuals, but it's also really good with just reporting your stories. For instance, if I had a spreadsheet of car accidents for every county in North Carolina, right? And I could run my queries and do plenty of analysis in SQL. But if I were to map them, and I'm making this up, and I saw that there are more car wrecks in the mountain counties than anywhere else, well, heck, that's something that I wouldn't know unless, 1, I really knew the geography of North Carolina, or 2, I put it on a map. And I could see that Graham County and Buncombe County and all these other mountainous counties had the car wrecks, and that may even change my story, or at least a couple graphs in my story. And it's all because I put the data into a visualization, and that's what Tableau Public does. So we're going to start with downloading the program, and I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to download it on my desktop, and then I also uploaded a file called NC Median Income. We'll check out that before we import it, and we'll create a map today. Okay, so let's download Tableau Public, and here's the link. Copy and paste it into a browser and follow the instructions. Here is the download page for Tableau Public, and like it says, it lets you create interactive graphs and maps, and once you produce them, you can download a link for your map, and you can also download an embed code. So if you wanted to post it on a website, you use that embed code to post it. So let's start by downloading, and the first thing you do is enter an email. And I'm going to try my work email and see if this one works. If not, I'll use a backup one. Enter your email and click Download App. And you see it's beginning automatically. And I'm going to run the program. You could click Save As, but I'm just going to run it. Here it is, 40% done, 45%. It's a pretty small program, so that it should download pretty quickly for you. Three-quarters of the way there. And here we are. Okay. So let's see if it pops up. Here we go. Then you click the box that you have read and accept the terms and install. And this says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yes, because I want to allow it on my device. And here it's installing. And depending how long it takes, I may just stop the installation video portion of it and pick it up when it's done, but you can see that typically it installs pretty fast. Now a little bit more about Tableau Public, and we'll see once we start it, that you can import a bunch of different file types to Tableau Public, including text files and CSV files, which we'll mainly concentrate on. You can also import an Access file, which is a SQL file in the Microsoft Office product. And if you get really into data journalism, or at least data, you can import spatial files. And what spatial files are a mapping file that you can create your own boundaries. Say I wanted to map specific neighborhoods or school districts. A lot of times you'll create them in a spatial file in a different program and then import them into Tableau Public. You might be able to tell that I turned off the video. It was taking too long to load and I didn't want to bore you guys to death. So I turned off the video and I had to restart my computer. And once you do that, you'll notice that the Tableau Public icon pops up on your desktop. All right, so let's check out first the CSV file that we'll be importing. So grab the file online if you haven't already and save it to your folder, for this class folder anyway, and we'll look at the data that we'll be importing, okay? And it's called NC Median Income. And we looked at this type of data earlier. I think it was when we were playing around with Excel. And this time we're going to map it, obviously. We're not just going to do an analysis to it. And what it is, it's every county in the state, all 100 of them. And it's the county name, and then the state name, then the number of households in each county, median household income, the number of households below poverty, number of households on food stamps, and then I already ran percent of households below poverty and percent of households on food stamps. And that brings up a good point, because you want to do all your analysis first, either in Excel or SQL, and then load it into Tableau to present it visually. You can do a little bit of calculations in Tableau, but I like to clean the data, fact check your data, make sure it's ready to be presented, and then loading into a map program. Okay, so this is the data, all 100 counties. There should be 101 rows, and that's correct. 100 counties in North Carolina plus the header, and that's what we'll be mapping today. So I'm going to close this out and save it. Save it one more time. Okay, now let's open Tableau Public by double-clicking on it. And you'll first come to a landing page. And as I mentioned, on the left, you can see the types of files that you can connect to Tableau. Excel and a text file. In this case, CSV is a text file, remember. There's that Microsoft Access, which is a SQL database manager, and the spatial file that I told you about a minute ago. So we're importing a CSV file, and that one obviously is a text file. So double click on text file and navigate to wherever you stored NC median income. Double click on it to open it up. And it opens up into your data source page on the bottom left, right? And all your columns and field names are there, and you should be able to scroll across to check them out. It starts with geography, in this case county, and it goes all the way to percent on food stamps. Right? So your data's there. There was no errors in importing it. Tableau is pretty good at importing data. They're not great at recognizing formats, which we'll discover in a minute. So once your data is imported, double click on sheet 1. It should be highlighted. Okay, this is a blank Tableau worksheet. And you can see your headers on the left-hand side. It starts with geography and then state. And then if you go down to where it says measures, you have all your other fields. Percent below poverty, percent on food stamps, households, etc. And you notice the two boxes. The top one says dimensions and the bottom one says measures. Well, that's the two types of categories that Tableau sets the different fields in. And it guesses for the most part, but it's guessing that anything in Tableau, or I'm sorry, anything in dimensions are text or location fields. And these are fields that can be put into categories. Think of when you write a select group by line. These are what you would group by, right? They're categories of information. Measures, on the other hand, they're usually numbers, and they're fields that can be summed up, average, total, etc. But Tableau doesn't always get it right. So if you ever need to switch a dimension to a measure, you just right-click on it and convert to measure. And you can do the same thing on a measure. Right-click on a measure field, convert to dimension, right? But for today, it got the dimensions and the measures correct, but it didn't get the formatting correct. Now, how do I know that? Well, you see the little globe next to the word state, that field? Tableau is saying, okay, I think that state field is a geography field, is something I could map it on. And the header pretty much gave it away because it was a state header. So Tableau guessed right on that, but it didn't guess right on geography. Do you see how next to geography it has A, B, and C? That means it's reading it as a string or a text field. So we need to change that formatting. Right-click on geography, and click on geographic role, and then scroll down to county. Geography, geographic role, county. And now you see how the ABC went away, and instead you have the globe. So that means that I can now map that field. And while I'm at it, I'm going to right-click on it in geography again, and I'm going to rename it. And let's name it county. So right-click on it and rename it county. So by the headers on the right hand or on the left hand side, you can switch from dimension to measure. You can change the geographic role. You can change the format, and we'll do a little bit more of that later on. And you can rename the field as well. But we have this data, and we want to map it. And as you can maybe see, Tableau is sort of like pivot tables in Excel, where we drag and drop column headers into the boxes that we want. And the main box, sort of the rows box in Excel, the main box in Tableau is the details box, or the details folder. All right, so since we want to map it, let's grab state and drag it into the details folder. And let's see what pops up. Just a single dot on North Carolina, right? And so far that's accurate because we're mapping North Carolina locations. Let's do the same thing for county. Drag county and drop it into details. There you go. All North Carolina counties, all 100 of them, with a location map in between. And I'm going to get rid of this right-hand box. First, I'm going to change my mapping style. Right now, this, the recommended one is sort of a point map or a dot map. I'm going to change it to the one right next to it. And this is called a filled map. Filled maps, I just think they look better and they're easier to read. So click on a fill map, and there you go. And then click on Show Me to get rid of the different types of charts and maps you can create. So there we have North Carolina highlighted, right? And if you scroll over a county, we have our county and state names in there. But that doesn't really tell us much, does it? I mean, we have all that other data on the left-hand side that we can populate our map with and really tell a story visually. So let's do that. Okay, I'm going to drag households into details as well. And you can see it's added to my details list, and it's saying the sum of the households. And in this case, I don't mind that it's a sum because there's not two different field households for each county. In other words, I could average a single number or sum a single number, and I still get that single number. But if you scroll over your data now, you can see that households was added to my pop-up box. And here's Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County has 395,000 households. Interesting, but it doesn't tell the story that we're looking for, right? Because we have information on food stamps and percent below poverty, and of course we'd query that information in SQL, or we run functions in Excel, and we talk to people on food stamps and experts on why food stamps are so prevalent. So we want our map to show that as well. So I'm going to drag two more into details. I'm going to drag households below poverty and households on food stamps into details as well. Below poverty, on food stamps, and you can see that they pop up in your pop-up box. Now let's do median household income. Drag that in the details. And you can see down below the median household income for Burke County, $40,854. That's helpful, but you might want to you might already know we'd want to change the format for that. We want to change it to a currency. So to change the format, it's just like changing the geographic role like we did for county. Scroll over to median household income and right click on it. Then hover up to default properties. And see these boxes appear, and we want number format. So default properties, number format. And I usually go with currency custom, and I get rid of the two trailing zeros, another the two zeros after the decimal point. So currency custom, and I take this down to 0, then click OK. And all of a sudden you can see that Mecklenburg's mean household income is not just $61,000, it's $61,000. Okay, we're getting there. We're adding information to our map. But while we're at it, let's do the same thing for percent below poverty. Drag it into details, look at it, and then change the format as well. So percent below poverty, into details, and you can see that percent below poverty for Mecklenburg County is 0.0614. What that really is saying is that it's 6.14% below poverty. So I'm going to change that one to a percent, just like we did for the income. Right click on it, default properties, number format, and in this case percentage, and I'm going to keep the two places after the decimal this time. Click OK, and do the same thing for food stamps while we're at it. Right click on food stamps, default properties, number format, percent, OK. Now, so far in our map we have state and county, which produced the data. Then we have the households. We have households below poverty, households on food stamps. We have median household income, and we have the percent below poverty. We have a lot of information. But the map visually doesn't tell us anything, right? It's all blue. And I left it blue because I want to map it or color code it on the one field that we have remaining, the percent on food stamps, right? So rather than dragging percent on food stamps into details, drag it into color. Percent on food stamps into color. And look at that. It automatically sets it up as a color and automatically color codes it. Where you can see on the key on the right hand side, the lighter the color, the lighter the blue in this case, the fewer percent of people on food stamps for each county. The darker the blue, the greater the percent of food stamps recipients, right? And let's hover over some real dark blues. Robeson County, on food stamps, 29.57. And if you get up to Edgecombe, 28.34. Halifax, 29.16, etc. So right away, I'm getting visually some good information. I could even include in my story that the northeast and the southeast sections of the state have the highest food stamp recipients, or the highest percentage of food stamp recipients in all of North Carolina, which you can see. Northeast right here, southeast right here. And then meanwhile, all over here is medium to low number of food stamps. Now that we have a working map, I'm going to save the file. And this is where you guys will likely have to create an account. So if I go to File, Save to Tableau Public As, and then this will require you to create an account. So I'll let you do that on your own. I already have an account for work, so I'm going to save mine for my work account. And I have a password. I'm signing in. And then it asks you to save your workbook. And I'm going to save mine as NC Data Class. This way I won't get it confused with all my Charlotte Observer workbooks as well, and save it. So you guys will have to take a second to create an account with a password and save it. And then you'll see that once it does save, or every time it saves actually, you get this web page. And this is sort of a what your map will look like without any kind of formatting that we've done. And you can see that you can scroll over the county right now, and it's exactly like Tableau, but it provides a link, right? But we're not there yet, so I'm going to go back to Tableau Public, and let's really make this map pop. Okay, I'm going to go up to Map up top. Click on Map, click on Map Layers. Map and Map Layers. And you can see I don't have my column names anymore. I have all the map layers that are possible to add. For instance, the base is already checked. And I personally don't like the base. The base is all that gray that you see, all down here. So I unclick base just to make it white. And I unclick land cover to make it really white. So you see how North Carolina tends to stand out more? Now you can play around with it. It really doesn't matter as long as it's you can see the counties visually. But I'm going to add coastline. And my coastlines appear for Virginia and South Carolina. And I don't need country or country region because I'm not mapping the world. I'm going to stick with the state and the state name, so I'm going to keep them. I don't even need, I could add county borders, but I'm not going to. You see all that sort of clunks up the map. And I could add county names, which would really clunk up the map. So there's a bunch of different geographies that you can add. Even area codes, zip codes, metro boundaries, cities, neighborhoods, etc. When I map individual counties, like if I was just mapping Mecklenburg, I might add something with neighborhoods, or you can scroll up and I might add street and highways as well. But you really don't need that, or at least I don't think you do, for an entire county map. So select the map layers that you want. I'm going to stick with coastline, state, and state. And I think that's about it. Then you can click off that. So now we have our map layers. You click off it by that X box right up top there. Now let's change the coloring. And just like the map layers, the coloring is largely up to you. So click on color. edit colors. And this is the default that Tableau gives you. And it's light blue to dark blue. Under the automatic drop down is all your color ranges. You can go from light blue to dark blue, the default. You can go to oranges, go to purples. It doesn't matter. And even when you do select one, like say brown to brown, you can change your brown by clicking on it. The ones that I see most often are the diverging ones. And let me see if I can get to like an orange blue diverging. They tend to visually pop out more than other maps, but it's totally up to you as long as it's accurate and visually appealing. So I'm going to try orange blue diverging. I'm going to see how it looks by clicking apply and then OK. Apply and then OK. And you can always go back and change it. So I'm going to click on edit color again. And if I wanted to edit color, I could edit it right here just by grabbing a different color. Or click on the blue by grabbing a different color blue. But that's fine with me. I'm not concerned about it. But one thing I do want to do, click on color, and I'm going to add a border. See right under effects, I'm going to add a border, and I'm going to make it dark black. There we go. So we added a border to our counties, or a thicker border anyway. You can also adjust the transparency of your county, or to your colors. Right now ours is at 79 or 80. Scroll further to the left, it lets you see. Scroll further to the right, it gets darker. In this case, transparency is probably not that bad when you have it at 80 or 100%. When I map neighborhoods and I need to show people where the roads are or neighborhood boundaries are, then of course you want to see through your colors to the actual roads. So then that's when you would back your transparency off. Right? So there's my map. In this case, my legend up top says the blues have the higher rates of people on food stamps. The oranges have the lower rates of people on food stamps. Now there are two more things that I want to do before we prepare our map for the sort of the layout portion of Tableau. I'm going to take county and drag it to filter. And you can see this says, okay, these are all your different counties that you can eventually filter. All right? I'm just going to click apply and OK. And then my filter is there and it's saved, but I don't need it quite yet because I haven't put the finishing touches on the map. We will in a couple minutes. What I also want to do is change the pop-up box. See how clunky that looks? We have county, we have state, we have percent below poverty, percent on food stamps, households, households below poverty, households on food stamps, median household income, etc. It's all good information, and I probably want to include most of it, but I want to clean it up a little bit. So, to do that, click on Worksheet, and then Tooltip. Worksheet and then Tooltip, or you can just click on Tooltip right here. That's your tooltip box. That's what they call a pop-up box in Tableau. And there's our code for what appears in the pop-up. Right? And I think we want to include most of this information. The one that we might want to kill off, state. We all know it's North Carolina. No reason to have it there. So I'm going to highlight it, click backspace, backspace again. State is no longer there. And you can also rearrange. You can rearrange, you can center them, you can change the type and the color. So feel free to play around with that. I'm going to do the same thing. And the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the first word, county. Because when people see Mecklenburg County, they're going to know that it's a county. They're not going to have to say that county, Mecklenburg County. So I'm going to get rid of county. And I'm going to change the color. I'm going to highlight county. just like that. And I'm going to change it to dark blue. And I'm going to change it to 12-point font, why not? And I'm going to scroll all the way up and change the style as well to Calibre. So there we go. Now watch when I click OK. You see, now the word county is gone, but Mecklenburg County is still there, and it's obviously a different color. So I'm going to go back to tooltip and finish it up. Right? Now, what do I think are the sort of the chunks of data that go together? Right? So we have the 2%, they probably go together. Then we have households, households below poverty, households on food stamps. So they may go together. And then median household income. So these three are probably the three different categories, right? And again, this is all just personal preference. So you can present the data any way you want. But these are the three sort of categories that I see in my data. So I'm going to separate them like that. And I'm going to do it with just a hyphen across. Sort of make a line across. And you'll have to judge how long it is by viewing it in the pop-up box. But I created a hyphen between my two data sets, or between my types of fields. Alright? And then, since we changed this color in county, I'm going to change the other colors as well. In fact, I'm going to make all the field names blue and Calibre, if that's how you pronounce it, 12. And I'm going to bold them as well. So blue, and unfortunately I think you have to do this one at a time. Actually, let's just select all. Make them all blue at once, and then we'll change the ones that we want. So select all. I'm going to make them all blue, all bold, all 12, and all Calibre. There we go. So that's what I have so far, but I don't want them all to be blue. I'm going to change the actual results, which here are my results. That some percent below poverty, that's the actual data. So I'm going to change that to black. I'm going to change percent on food stamps to black, as well as number of households. And you get the point. I'm going right down the line and changing them all to black. Again, this is personal preference. I just find that a little color coding, one, it makes your map more interesting, and two, it makes the numbers stand out as opposed to like a gray and a light black. Okay? And I'm going to get crazy. I'm going to change, since we have my map is blue and orange, I'm going to change the hyphens, just that I added to divide the columns orange. So there I have it so far. And the last thing that I'll do, highlight it all. I'm going to center it. Doesn't have to be centered, and it might not even look good centered, but that's what it looks like so far. When you get yours as you want it, click OK. And there's my data. Mecklenburg County, I have the percents, then I have the household information, and then I have the income. One thing I might want to do is just shorten some of that hyphens. I don't think I need all that hyphens, so I'm going to go back up to my worksheet, my tooltip. I'm just going to take a little bit off, then I'm going to copy and paste that one into the one below. Control C, Control V. Okay. And there we go. That's not bad. It's we put our data, all that data that we would have had to request, clean up, either analyze in Excel or write formulas in SQL. We put it into a pretty nice visual that can also tell a story. You know, that some of the northeast and southeast counties in the state perhaps are some of the poorest, it looks like. At least they're the highest percentages on food stamps. Because I did quite a bit of extra work, I'm going to save the file again. And it's going to say it's already saved. You want to save over it? Yes, I do. And you can see once I save over it, it pops up sort of a preview of what it will look like online. And here's my running preview, or my working preview. Right? There's all our map, all our data displayed visually. Okay, back to Tableau. Now we have our data source down at the bottom left. We have our sheet 1 that I'm going to rename to map. You can call it map, you can call it data, you can call it whatever you want. But this is our working file, this is our workbook. Now we have to create what I would call a landing page for it, how we want it to actually look on a web page. So we can grab a link or an embed code. So to do that, click on Dashboard and then New Dashboard. And this is a blank dashboard. And what dashboards do, this is where you take your map and you sort of fine-tune it for the way you want it presented online. And the first thing that I do is take care of the size on the left-hand side. Maps, typically for web pages, at least for the observer, because we have ads on each size, they start with a width of 700. So it's a 700 width. And the height can be whatever the map needs. In this case, North Carolina is longer than it is higher or lower, so I don't need it to be 700. That would be just look like a square. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to click on range and do fixed size. And my width, like I said, is going to be 700. And my height, I'm going to make it I'll make it 500. And you guys can play around with different sizes to see which one looks best to you. So we just changed the size of this box right here. It's very light, but we just changed the size of it. The next thing I do is click floating. And the reason I click floating is I can take my map and drag it into that drop sheets here location, and then I can move it around. If I click tiled, it's static. You can't move it around. By clicking floating, I can adjust where I want my map. So here it is, my map. Grab it and drag it anywhere in your box. Right? And now make it the size of your window. And you can do that just by grabbing corners, like I'm doing now. Or you can actually click on layout and say, okay, the X position where it's starting should be at 0. I'm going to start it at 2 just to give it a little buffer. And the same thing with the Y, give it a little buffer. And then click enter. See how it changed a little bit? And then the width is 689. I'm going to do 692. And same thing for 92. So you can create the size either way by dragging and dropping and then grabbing the corners, or by changing the actual position over here. All right? But here's our map. The next thing that I typically do is zoom in. And to zoom in, if you hover over your left, you get this pop-up box, right? And then you get a little zoom in. You can also create a little hand, and this can grab your map, or you can highlight a square, highlight a circle, etc. And of course you can also zoom in and out here. But I'm going to grab my magnifying glass, and this takes a little bit of time to get the right zoom length. That might be a little too close, so I'm going to zoom out again. Try it one more time. And then I'm going to grab the arrow and just adjust it a little bit. That's not terrible. You could do it, manage it just so it fits it perfectly. It's your choice, as long as you get the entire map in, and you don't want it being too small. That looks good to me. And you don't want it to overrun your map as well. Right? Now, let's take our legend, or our map key, and place it somewhere out of the way. And I'll place it somewhere at the bottom. One, because we have more room down there, and two, because we're going to actually add some chatter, or like a lead-in sentence. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to grab the top of it and place it somewhere at the bottom, for now anyway. And we'll format that in a bit. And while I'm at it, working at the bottom portion of my map, I'm going to also add a source box. This data I got from the U.S. Census Bureau, and I downloaded it, but you of course would know where you get your data from. So to create a source box, click back on Dashboard up on the top left. And you can see this is our map. This is that floating character that we wanted. Make sure floating is highlighted again, and click on text. Actually, double click on text, and you get a text box right there. And we can type whatever we want in here. But it's source, so I'm typing in source, U.S. Census Bureau. Then I'm going to do a comma, 2017. Because the data is, it's a couple years old, but it's the most recent that the Census Bureau had. And because this is so faint, it's not going to stand out very well, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my pop-up, and I'm going to change the color and change the size just to make it more readable. Now you can have this written in cursive if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, probably can't read it. But select the type, select a size, whether you want to bold it, color, etc. Click OK. And there's our source. Now take that, I'm going to place that at the bottom as well. Now a couple things. See how my source has the sort of the map information behind it? So that looks a little funky. What I'm going to do is change that. I'm going to take the easy way out and just slide my source up a little bit, or you can slide it over. There's my source right above it. I have plenty of room down here. And I'm also going to work on my legend box, right? And I'm going to click on my legend box, click on the drop down, and then format legends. In this case, you can add a border to it. Right now there's no border. You can make it blue, sort of a light blue. And you can also change the type. So if I wanted to double click on it, make it a darker, center it, bold it, etc. So % on food stamps. And of course I can change the size by just like I changed the size to my entire map. can drag and drop the top, bottom, left, or right. So there's my legend. One of the last things I want to do is add some chatter to my map. And when I say chatter, I mean sort of describe the map, or more importantly, if I'm writing a story about this data, say what my story says in a sentence or two. And we could do exactly what we've been talking about, that counties in the northeast and southeast sections of the state have the highest rates of residents on food stamps. So why don't we do that? So I'm going to double click on my map title where it says map, and that brings up another text box. And this is where I can write some chatter. So it can go something like this. Counties in So I have counties in North Carolina's northeast and southeast sections have some of the highest rates of households on food stamps, census data show. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing that I've been doing all along. I'm going to make it bold, center it. I'm going to put it down to 12 point and bump it up to Calibri, ones I've been using, and see how it fits by clicking apply and then OK. And you see I have room still, right? And I can add that Robeson County has nearly 30% of homes on food stamps, or something like that. So we'll see how this fits. I have in Robeson County, 30% of homes receive food stamps. Click apply, click OK. Much better. See? Now I'm going to add a small blue border to my title by right-clicking in my title, click Format, and you can see this pops up right here. Shading is fine. I don't need a shading, although you could do a light background color, sort of like that, if you wanted. But the border that I was going to add is under Title, Border. I'm going to add a blue one, and you can click what size you want. Nothing too big. So there's my border, and I should have known, but you see whenever I changed the format for the title, the format for the legend also changed. So I got to double click on that and change it back to dark black, center, and I think it had a 10 Calibri. I don't know why it does that. The title sort of overrides everything. So there we go. Then click OK. So there we have it. It's almost ready to be published. There's one more thing that I think I want to add. Remember we drug county into filters back in our worksheet? I want to add that filter. So I could add a search box where I type in Mecklenburg, and even though if I don't know where Mecklenburg is on the map, it'll highlight it and show me the data. So to do that, click on this drop down up here, More Options. Then click on Filters, or hover over Filters, and County. And you get a long list of sort of grayed out county names. Not pretty. But we can grab that list and play around with it a little bit. So click anywhere in there and you'll get that gray box that lets you pull it to the side. Just like that. You all do that? So we have a county, filters, and we have a list of all our counties that look like sort of Excel filters, how they're all checked, right? but I don't want those check boxes because it's 100 counties long. So I'm going to click the drop down option one more time and wildcard match. Our friend wildcard, just like SQL. Click on that, and there we go. Now the only thing I have to do is change the size of this box, right? Because I don't want it still 100 counties long. I need it just enough to where it would fit into one box. And the way I do it is the long way, just by dragging it up and dropping. You could also just click on it anywhere in this box. Click on it, click layout, and you see how long it is. So you can change this to, and I'm making this up, but let's change this to, I'm going to play around with it and try 30. And that shifts it over. Rather than 160, I'm going to try 20. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to change it back to 160. And rather than 720, I'm going to change it to 100. There we go. See how it shrunk it down? And now I can place it in my map. And I can actually grab it and put it right up there as well. You can put it wherever you want, right? And with the hopes that I don't mess up my formatting for my legend and my formatting for my title, I'm going to do the same thing and bold that, center it, change the text type, and again, you can change it to whatever you want, but I usually go with the same standard one. Cleavery, 11, bold, black or blue, and there you have it. Now we'll see if it's actually linked to our data, to our map. And you do that by typing in Mech and click OK. And there's Mecklenburg. Now you can hover over it and see your data. Now to get rid of it, click off it. But that looks like a pretty good map to me. It has a lot of information on it. And visually it tells a story. That in certain portions of the state, it's almost like the Interstate 95 corridor right here are some of the poorest areas in the state. And I would look at the map just like I would data and glean information to it and put it in paragraph form. That Mecklenburg County's rate for folks on food stamps or households on food stamps is 10.75 compared to 30% for Robeson County. And the eastern portion of the state by far has the highest percentage of households on food stamps. All that information I would put down into words so I can not only have a cool map with it that tells a story, but also include some of this information in the story itself. Now let's save it one more time. Click Save. And this will tell you the name of your workbook. You're going to say yes, and you're going to overwrite it because we're saving a new copy. And once it's done, it'll pop up how it'll look up online. And you can see my different versions right here. First version, second version, final version. And there we have it. There's sometimes you might have to adjust some things. You might have to put this box lower because it doesn't always translate into the browser's the same. Sometimes IE is different from Chrome, is different from Firefox. And finally, you have this share link right here, right? And if you click on it, you can grab the embed code, which is a real long code. If you copy and paste it into essentially a website file called an HTML file, that would bring up your map. or you can always have this preview link that would bring up the exact page that we're looking at. But that HTML code would bring up more what it looks like right here. That size, that color. So that's a brief rundown of mapping in Tableau. We downloaded it, we checked out some counting data, and I think presenting it visually adds a strong accent to our story.